Hello, I'm Hatrix, and this is the pure melee shadow build. It revolves around using melee skills to cast insta cast bolts, and in this case we use the pure cast bolt version. So by casting the melee skills in order to get to the cast bolts, we getting stacks for the Masters of Shadow, and we get those from Sinister Strike and Gloomblade, as you see in the clip here. We're also using Eviscerate to proc Masters of Shadow. Masters of Shadow is a big shadow modifiers, so we get a lot of shadow damage from it. We get 13% damage and 10% crit. Most of our damage is coming from the Cast Bolt, and in this case the Pure Cast Bolt. Since we're using the Pure Cast Bolt version, it's Shadow, and that benefits from our other abilities. We're also using Fel Infused Blade, and we are using Dark Intent. Both of those abilities are also Shadow, so all of our abilities we're using are benefiting from shadow increases. The rotation are pretty smooth, I would say. It's very fun. There's a lot of buttons to press and a lot of reactions, like reacting to Maelstrom weapons. Sometimes you're not getting crits, sometimes you are, so like keeping your Masters of Shadows up. So a lot of things is going on in this build, and I'm gonna break them down. Alright, so I've called this build Shadow Melee, but you could call it anything. You can also call it Chaos Bolt Abusing, you could call it Fel Infused Abusing. And let me say, I guess a disclaimer, this build uses a lot of legendaries. This is an end-game build, it is not budget friendly. It is not something you could roll into it if you really want to, or maybe you have rolled into it, but yeah, keep that in mind. So we're using the Masters of Shadows combo with the Pure Chaos Bolt. And also quick one to credit the guy from my Discord who showed me this build, and that I borrowed the idea from. I cannot take the credits. But first let me say what stat we're using. We are melee build, so you probably guessed that we are mental quickness. So we're getting faster global cooldowns, and we can benefit from mental quickness. We are having edgy hybrid gear. You could also go like intellect, and there's not that many reasons to scale melee attack power anyway, so if you're intellect version you want to play this build, it works mighty fine. I mean, both are good. So the core of the build, if you're not aware, there's a very strong legendary from an old legendary RE from previous seasons called Corrupted Maelstrom Weapon. So each time we do melee damage with an ability, we get a stack. So when we have 3 stacks, we can basically cast an insta Chaos Bolt. But Chaos Bolt has a 12 seconds cooldown, so to circumvent this, we're using Felstorm to reduce the Chaos Bolt ability as well. So each time we have 3 stacks, we can always cast the Chaos Bolt. And in this case, we're casting the Pure Chaos Bolt. And if I cannot remember if I said it, but Pure Chaos Bolt is all damage types. So Pure Chaos Bolt is, in this case, shadow damage, but it also benefits from other stuff that I will get into later. And so basically the core, when we're using the Masters of Shadows, we're basically using 3 Sinister Strikes to get the free cast. But you could also use a Gloomblade. Alright, and our skill of choice to proc the Cast Bolt are Sinister Strike, because this works well with the Dark Intent and the Masters of Shadows. So to gain more procs from Sinister Strike, we use the Double Down legendary. We don't generate combo points, but we have a workaround for that later. So what does it gain us from doing double Sinister Strike and also like hitting with our offhand? We get twice the amount of Fel Infused Weapon, and we get twice the amount of Dark Intent procs. This doesn't like proc anything, it's just more damage. And also by attacking with both weapons, we are getting energy from combat potency if we roll that talent. Alright, and a quick mention, when I have the legendaries that I know there's a location for, I will mention them, and if I don't mention them, you have to open them from seal cards. In this case, we can get the Double Down from the coast of Stranglethorn Vale. I think this is outside of the Horde City, in like a ship wreckage under the sea. Alright, so Masters of Shadow is an old legendary, and now you can just combine it into any build. So it's a stack you can see in the video before, where we gain 3 stacks, and then when we have 3 stacks, we can proc it from Eviscerate or Rapture. So the proc will gain us Masters of Shadow, and then I said there's a very strong like payoff to go the Shadow route. Alright, but casting Eviscerate requires couple points, and Double Down makes us no longer generate them. That also means that either you're casting 1 Gloomblade every 6 seconds, or you're casting Honor Amongst, or you're having the talent for Honor Amongst Thief. For Honor Amongst Thief, you have to have the whole capstone. For Seal Fate, you have to have a decent amount of crit, and have it either 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3. One of them works, but you can also use both to have bigger eviscerates. And as you can see, there's also the Gloomblade, as I mentioned. And the Gloomblade, like just pure cast, is not that much damage. But you can see the procs we get from using abilities while we have the Gloomblade debuff. It's actually a decent amount of damage. Not anything like crazy, but a good amount. And you can see we also can proc it from Masters of Shadow. Alright, so shadow scaling, what stands to choose? I've chosen Twisted Mind in my version, or what I prestige this for my first test. You can also use the Shadowform. I think they're basically equal good, and I think probably Shadowform is probably outperforming Twisted Mind when you get better gear and stuff. But I don't have both of them, so I cannot test it. Alright, so Pure Chaos Bolt, why are we using that, or why I've been talking so much about it, is because it does chaos damage, and chaos damage is all damage types. Why is this so crazy? Not just for the shadow damage. So I talked about the Master of Shadow, and you can benefit from shadow damage. That also means that you can benefit from Master of Demonologist, but not the Imp, actually the Succubus. You're getting a 10% talent passive for both of the shadow damage and the crit. But you can also proc stuff like Ignite. And I haven't seen there are other like crazy stuff from Arcane Nature and stuff you can proc and Holy, but there's maybe something I have forgotten, so maybe if you know, you can post in the comments. But yeah, like Ignite in a shadow build, that is crazy that you can do this now. So we can scale so much shadow increase and then even proc the Ignite. It is very busted. And in the damage clip you saw earlier, I didn't even have Ignite, so imagine also having that. Alright, so and what crit talent can we benefit from? We can benefit from a lot. We are not starving on mana, so we cannot benefit from the Arcane one, but we can benefit from Ruin, Vengeance, and Elemental Fury. Elemental Fury does require us to have the Elemental Focus, so keep that in mind. And other ways to scale it, what we can abuse, you can say, we can get the what we do is in the shadows. When you do one damage type, you get the others. So the most common one would be what we do in the shadows. So we get 8% shadow damage from casting Sensor Strike. But if you roll or carded the Eclipse Strike, you could also rolling for Coax to Darkness or the Dark Magician. Those will benefit from, you still get the 8 shadow damage from using Eclipse Strike, but keep in mind you will not gain both of them. You can only get up to 8 stacks, so there's no reason to stack them, sadly. Alright, what other things can we look for? This is not anything I had in my, like the build I showed, but this is what you can be rolling for to like really scale the build up. We have the talent Molten Core and Molten Fel Core. So when you have Molten Core, it also benefits Chaos Bolt. Very strong talent, like 15% increased damage. You don't get that from a lot of talents, but you have to like proc Molten Core and stuff. So how to even apply Molten Core. So we have 3 different corruption, as you maybe know by now. This season is pretty busted when it comes to like all of the split new versions of skills. And what are the easier way to proc them? The most easy way are Shift, and are probably one that I would recommend. This is not anything I would card for, because the build are already pretty stacked on what we have to card. More on that later. But if you rolling Shift or you roll Corrupted Shift, so it actually works, then you can be look out for the corruptions in order to proc the Molten Core. It's a lot of stuff that you roll for and you have to keep, but it's something to keep in mind. And also other ways, you could also be looking out for Everlasting Affliction, another good way to refresh corruption. This does require you to cast, I think the best one would be Shadow Bolt. And for Shadow Bolt, you would either have Shadow Strike, so you can get a free Shadow Bolt. And by that, there's actually some pretty good payoffs that you enter the Cruel Knight, getting energy and shadow damage. And there's also like the benefit from doing the corruptions that you can proc the last crit node that I didn't talk about, the Shadow Power. And another way, if you just have the Shadow Power and you're looking for the corruption package, if you've been lucky and rolling Purification by Light, this one can also proc Shadow Power, so that's a very nice combo to look for. Alright, what other sources can we do for scaling? We can basically have free Ignite because we're casting so many Chaos Bolts. That is from Controlled Burn and Battle Cultist, so either one works. And the payoff is if you hit the Fire and Brimstone, that requires you to have Immolate, but if you have it, you get 10% damage. That is big for Chaos Bolt, because right now my Chaos Bolt is hitting for 22k, so like adding 10% more damage, that is 2k. And also you can, even if you want to, you can card the random enchants, that is 6% more damage. Alright, what are the last talent we can be looking for? These are the good, some of them are not that good, but standalone talents that will buff Chaos Bolt. The biggest one, and probably the best by far, are probably besides Ignite, is the Shadow and Flame. Ignite also are dependent on of your crit chance, keep that in mind. And then we have the Chaos Manifestation. I think this can be kind of lackluster because you cannot keep the empowerment up like all the time, so it's only some of the time that you can have the Shadow empowerment for your next Chaos Bolt, so keep that in mind. But a nice one anyway. Also the Deathbringer and the Unbound Deathbringer, like shadow damage you can proc. I think there's a 3 second eternal cooldown, keep that in mind. Alright, so what to card for this? This is what I carded. Would I recommend this? Nope, Nightfall is pretty lackluster in damage. I thought it would be more damage, but on paper it's pretty fun. But not that good, in my opinion. And so what else? Keep in mind, you need to have the pure Chaos Bolt version for this to work with the shadow scaling. Else, I would probably not suggest to go for this. So what else could you be carding in the 4th slot instead of a Nightfall? High one would be Gloomblade, but it's one of the easier ones to roll because it's a common ability, but it's only if you spend a lot of rolls for it. Arcane Power, always good. Could replace Shadowform for Twisted Mind if you maybe don't have the golden Twisted Mind. Could also be carding Jadefire Corruption if you really want to go for the package. Could also be carding Roll the Bones. There's a reason for it in a sec. And you could also be carding Eclipse Strike. That is for Eclipse Strike have very good spell power scaling. And Eclipse Strike can proc the 2 talent that I mentioned, Codes to Darkness, and the other one, I cannot remember the name. Right, why Roll the Bones? Why would I suggest that? Actually, Aggression, so benefits crit chance of Sinister Strike. Also increase the duration of Roll the Bones. And you're also getting cooldown reduction when you use a finisher move. Also, this is also credit for the guy from my Discord, from my guild, sorry. I didn't have no idea this like combo even existed, but actually pretty nice if you want to go for that. Alright, and if you want AoE for the build, you could probably go Seed of Corruption, but by far Fan of Knife are the strongest one, and we're even scaling the energy modifiers, so very big if you even have it or can roll it. Alright, talents. Let me get this straight out of the way. These 2 are not replaceable, and if you don't have these cards, and if you probably don't have Felstorm and Golden, it's gonna be very hard to roll this. I have the cards for this, and they're level 60 abilities, so very hard to roll. The build basically doesn't work if you don't have them, so I just have to say that. And yeah, talent cards, what are the alternatives? One of the biggest modifier are Ignite, Shadow and Flame, and Aggression, because Aggression will also increase your crit chance of your Dark Intent, so very good one. And also you need pretty high amount of crit in order to either trigger the like Masters of Shadows, so have to have some crit from somewhere. And also if you don't have the Gloomblade, you would need some ways to gain combo points in order to proc the Eviscerate, so keep that in mind. It is a very hard build to roll, I would say that. But there's a chance that you roll 1 to 3 Seal Fate, so that will get you going if you don't have the Gloomblade. Alright, and what are the best replaceable ones? Those are the ones I always look for. Dark Intent works in itself, it doesn't need the Masters of Shadow to work. Masters of Shadow are probably the most replaceable, but it's also the one you want to build around, so it's a hard line. Double Down, I would say it's hard to replace because you get double Dark Intent, you get double Fel Infused Weapon. It is very strong. And also those are level 10, so in theory you could be rolling them when you're rolling level 10 stuff. Yeah, and last thing with the build, I talked about the gear earlier, but let me quick run over my gear. Alright, so let's quickly take a look at what gear I used in the video earlier. I'm using Agi Hybrid, but as I said, you could also just be using intellect gear like Int and Spell Power. So I don't really have the set bonuses, so keep that in mind. They are quite good, but not that broken, for these sets at least. So Agi, Intellect, Spell Power and Crit. So edgy spell power, there's also like pure spell power you could also use. I use the 5 set, so I get some spell crit from the agility. Spell power off piece, as I say, just spell power. Shaman hybrid token, shaman hybrid. I use daggers in order to use the Gloomblade. So you want a spell power dagger, and in the offhand you want... Alright, and in your offhand for your best in slot, you basically want this one. This doesn't give spell power right now, but when you have it on epic version, you get 40 spell power from it. I think you get it from Muradin, I'm not that sure. I think you can queue for it, and it gives like 40 spell power as I said, and it's very, very good as a offhand spell dagger. This one is by far the best in slot one. This one you cannot for some reason buy from the Mythic Plus vendors, and you cannot upgrade it, but it makes sense because it is very strong. Spell power offhand, spell power attack power works as well. Spell power crit, and shaman off pieces. Don't have the token yet for the belt, so spell power works. And yeah, gloves. And also let me quickly go over my stats. These are my attributes right now for agility and intellect, the main ones. My melee crit chance are 32, and my spell crit chance are 34 for fire spells. And a quick summary of what talents I rolled for the build that I showed. I have some offhand damage, but it's not that needed. I have some crit, and you should really be looking for those crit nodes that gives attack skills and spell crit. Also have some energy regen from Vitality. I have 2 out of 3 Seal Fate, so I get some of my cover points from this. I have both focus attacks and combat potency, so a lot of energy from this. I have Relentless Strike, so when I use Eviscerate, there's a chance that I gain my energy back. Some crit chance for Chaos Bolt. I have the full Aggression talent for crit chance for Sinister Strike. I have 2 out of 3 of the Shadow and Flame. I only have a 4 out of 5 of crit talent, and this doesn't even give me a benefit. I also have Blessed Weapon, that is 2% damage. That is also notes to look out for. I also have Elemental Devastation. That is a crit chance for melee abilities when you crit with Fire, Nature, and Frost. And in this case, Pure Chaos Bolt is all of those, so it will proc. We also have the Blade Twisting. All of the modifiers that say Sinister Strike increased damage, those works for both the Sinister Strike and the Dark Intent, since Dark Intent is Sinister Strike modifiers. We rolled the Overheated Strikes, but it's not that much of our damage. And then we have like these two, so casting a fire spell, have a chance to make your next fire spell don't cost, have no cost. I think these works for the Sinister Strike, Eclipse Strike stuff, but I'm not sure. I think I have uptime on them, so I think they can proc to save some energy and some mana. I also have the Chaos Meteor. I haven't tested this since it's fire damage, but this could maybe also works in your rotation because you're reducing it the cooldown because it's a Chaos Bolt modifier. So keep that in mind if you want to try it. Let me also quickly go over what the REs I used in the clip. I went for shadow damage from darkness. I went for all of these like small 1% shadow damage because we have so many different sources of shadow damage that I just want to scale all of them. But if I didn't use these, I would probably just be focusing on Chaos Bolt. So we're also using the Draconic Chaos Bolt. This gives us crit chance when we use Chaos Bolt. This is to boost the Chaos Bolt's crit chance, but also to just have more crit chance on Sinister Strike and Eviscerate Gloomblade. So we get more Masters of Shadows uptime. Also have Blade Twisting, so we gain more damage from Sinister Strike, and again also from Dark Intent, and just reduce some energy cost of Sinister Strike, but I don't think this is needed. We are pretty good on the energy right now with this version. So that is it for gear, what we roll for this version right now, and for what enchants I choose to use. So what are my conclusion? Legendaries are broken, Fel Infused are broken, Pure Chaos Bolt are broken, and it just gives a fun playstyle. And I'm kidding, that is not the conclusion, but it is crazy that you can get this kind of stuff from just stacking so many legendary cards. That's, I don't know, that is for another time to discuss. But yeah, this was such a fun rotation to play around with. Like, haven't played around with so much, but just like seeing the procs and stuff, like the rotation where you actually react to like getting to 3 stacks, have to react, and you have to react to your Masters of Shadows. When you get more crit chance, you probably don't have to react that much because you just have to use your Eviscerate whenever you don't have the Masters of Shadow up. So also it would be more rewarding for me when I get more crit for both Chaos Bolt and for Sinister Strike. And also kind of hipster build. I mean, beside my guild, I don't know where my guildie saw this. I think we have seen one other play this build, but yeah, not many around there. It's also very hard to roll because of all the legendary cards. And what other thing about the build that you should keep in mind? I mean, it's lacking AoE. I mean, right now I don't have any AoE if I don't use or have like fair enough knives. Would probably card fair enough knife if you were to main this and play it in dungeons and also have the single target. But I think for this kind of build, I would just focus on like having it for single target for raids and stuff. And that is it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching, and again, shout out and credit to the guy Ish in my guild who like gave me the idea for this build to try it out, and so I was able to make a video about it. And yeah, if you haven't already, only 50% of people watching my videos are subscribed, so if you're not subscribed and you like the video and you watched to the end, I mean, consider subscribing. But if you just stuck to the end, I still appreciate you being here. So yeah, thanks a lot, and see you in the next one.